Welcome back to the channel. It's February 18th, 2025, and for today's hopefully short episode, we'll traveling back to Charisma News for a article where they're bragging about a viral response to a short Greg Locke ex-post where he apparently is very upset that some Christians and even in the apostate church have taken issue with Paula White's appointment to the head of the White House Faith Office. Just for some context, Greg Locke is a lunatic. He's an NAR Dominionist uber. He wrote before the election that anybody who even considered voting Democratic was hellbound and irredeemable. They were beyond the redemption of Jesus Christ. He made his bones as one of the original demon slayers, that nonsense where Christians can be possessed by demons. He liked to make publicity by holding book burnings in the back of his church in Tennessee. It's become more mainstreamed. So he doesn't do the demon slayer shtick as much anymore, but he still is very much this NAR voice who idolizes Donald Trump and is selling that idolatry to any who will listen. And because he's as false as they come, he's a complete defender of the NAR and of the purpose-driven industrial complex. And then not to mention the fact that he's completely, as if that wasn't enough to disqualify him, he's an adulterer. He was sleeping with the secretary behind his wife's back, and then he divorced his wife and married a secretary. And he likes to pretend that nothing was happening prior to the marriage, but they got married pretty quickly afterwards. So, I think we all know. I think we're all adults here. And on top of that, his adulterous wife, Ty, asked Malachi O'Brien to name him an apostle for a particular reason. And because Malachi is as false as they come, he obliged. And not only named Greg an apostle, but somehow by osmosis, Ty also was named an apostle. So what you essentially have here is somebody who they themselves requested themselves to become an apostle, which I'm pretty sure is not anywhere in the Bible. So this is a pretty short clip, but let's go through it quickly.
Donald Trump puts in an office, not a cabinet, not just some small little deal, not an assembly of the Avengers. He puts it in an office of faith.
Yes, and who cares? If you yourself don't have any faith, which Donald Trump does not, despite Charisma's best efforts to try and whitewash the tomb, you're still dealing with a convicted rapist with 34 felonies who cheated on his first wife, his second wife, his third wife with a porn star. So it's embarrassing that the apostate church has chosen this as its idol. But it's not entirely surprising since there's nothing necessarily biblical to begin with. So Trump threw some red meat to the base and created a faith office to combat all the persecution that's going on in this country, which is none.
An office of faith to keep Christians from being persecuted.
Which Christians are being persecuted, Greg? In this country, the country with the most religious freedom in the entire world, where Christians basically get whatever they want. And they particularly get it now that they have complete control of the government. Not that there was any persecution before. What they label as persecution are things like, prayer being removed from, mandatory prayer being removed from schools, which is, not of God anyway. To force people to say prayers to a God that they don't believe in is not necessarily a Christian endeavor. Neither is, a high school football coach being unable to pray with students at the after a game when not all of the students are Christians. A baker being forced to bake a cake. This is not persecution. If you want to see persecution, go to China. Go talk to the Chinese brothers and sisters who have to basically do everything underground or fear of imprisonment for their faith. Go to the Middle East and talk to our Christian brothers and sisters before they get beheaded for their faith. That's persecution. What happens in this country is the victimization of the church. Greg Locke and the NAR want to turn the church into victims. That's what they want. They want a victim mentality. And that's what they sell. Oh, poor Christians are being persecuted. No, we're not.
He writes into law an office.
He did not write into law an office of the faith because Donald Trump doesn't operate within the law. He just created it. In fairness, I mean, I think he has the right to, but it's not written into law.
Office of faith, and Christians start persecuting Christians. What is wrong with us, dear God? I don't like this person. I don't like that person. I don't care, nor does God.
Yeah. I want to make sure that we stop there long enough to realize what this idiot just said. So his assertion is that this is so vitally important that a faith office was created to work against the persecution of Christians within this country, which doesn't exist. But nonetheless, playing along as if it did, his assertion here is that God somehow would not care who is running that office. And the person who's running that office, who he's not mentioning here, is Paul White. So this website, I'm sorry if it's a little small, breaks down just some of this, the various heresies of Paula White. Promoting the prosperity gospel is number one because she's a prosperity pimp. She always has been. I once did a devotional when she sent out a fundraising that said that 1 Chronicles 22:9 meant that God wanted you to send her $229. That's who's leading the faith office for the White House. That's who Greg Locke is so upset about and says that God doesn't care. Misusing and manipulating scripture for personal gain, which is what the example I just gave for the Chronicles verse. Affiliating with the New Apostolic Reformation, promoting false prophecies, undermining the gospel with man-centered works-based messages, failing to address sin, repentance, and the need for holiness, denial of the Great Commission, refusing to evangelize Jewish people. This is one I wasn't even aware of. The exact quote in the interview was, "I do not want to convert Jews. The plan for salvation to the Jews is God." He says, she says that we should not be converting Jews, but we should rather be listening to them, which kind of flips the entire New Testament gospel on its head. There's also questionable ethics practices about her ministry, financial mismanagement, personal enrichment through ministry funds. I mean, I read a story that, because her third marriage now is to the former bassist from the rock band Journey. And so apparently the remaining members of the band have a common fund that all the money that they've accumulated from their years of touring was in. And somehow Paula White got herself listed as somehow in control of this. And she started to suck money out of the account to the point that Neil Schon, the guitarist, had to sue Paula White and her husband to have them stop stealing the money. That's who's leading the faith office. So she's completely, absurdly unqualified. So much so that many in the NAR church and the apostate church have actually balked at it, which takes a miracle for people who are so false in everything else that they do to say that Paul White was a bridge too far. But apparently not for Greg Locke. For Greg Locke, apparently, just the questioning of it alone brings this kind of an angry response, claiming God somehow would not care who's leading the faith office.
I'm for revival, no matter who's leading it.
And that is part of the problem, right? Because who's leading it should matter infinitely to us. Jim Jones, who of the famous Jonestown debacle with the people who drank the poison Kool-Aid back in the 70s. Would it be okay if he led it? If Benny Hinn, he's okay. David Koresh, the Unabomber. Is there anybody? It doesn't matter as long as it's quote unquote revival. Then who cares who's leading it? Because that's a really dangerous position to hold. Certainly, if Greg Locke is leading the revival, it's not the people of God who are being revived.
I'm for truth.
No, you're not.
I'm for righteousness. I'm for holiness.
Righteousness and holiness. Was that before or after you slept with your secretary?
I'm for separation from the world. I'm for what God's for. How can we not be for that?
Because it's not what God is for. God is not for putting Paula White in charge of a fake White House office to lead more people astray, to fleece more money from the flock, as she's already earned over $5 million personally. God's not for that.
And if we are for it, if God be for us, who can be against us? I'm not afraid of demons. I'm not afraid of witches. I'm not laying up at night drinking extra coffee fretting over warlocks. Donald Trump.
So I guess he had to throw in at the end there some of his old school demon slayer garbage. Not afraid of witches and warlocks, and well, yeah, because you shouldn't be, because the people that you're calling that are just simply people who don't vote the way that you vote. So the bottom line here is, and I like these shorter videos, so I don't have to bore you too long with an hour-long video, but the faith office in the White House is a silly, red meat being thrown to the apostate church base who's just happy that somebody says the name Jesus correctly without being, sarcastic. And Paula White certainly, plays the part, but the part that she plays, the harlot, she is basically, sold a false prosperity gospel for decades now, where she, has made $5 million by robbing it from God's people, or from the people who are seeking God. And it's only appropriate, quite frankly, that she leads the White House faith office, because there's no persecution anyway of Christians in this country. So just like, it's time for us to wake up. We're not victims here. The object is not with the NAR goals of dominionist Seven Mountain nonsense. And Greg Locke, who has absolutely no moral, biblical, scriptural standing to be making any kind of an angry, plea, just probably needs to shut up at this point. So thanks for stopping by. Test everything and hold fast.